Hey friends, Steve Guttenberg here, and I am the Audiophiliac. Today it's a very, very special episode because I have a guest, and the guest is Bob Katz, and we appear on the screen at the same time. This has never happened before on an Audiophiliac Daily Show episode. Unfortunately, technology being what it is right now in the midst of everything going on, it doesn't look or sound that great. And I apologize for that, but I think the content yes, the content. The content is really good. We get deep into what exactly does the mastering process entail. We're gonna join this conversation already in progress, as they say, and I do hope you enjoy it. You're a mastering engineer and also a recording engineer and a mix engineer, but the subject today is what exactly is mastering and how is it different than remastering? But we're going to start with mastering, because I think even pretty sophisticated audiophiles don't really have a grip on what it is. So let's just take it from the, basically, what are your tools? How do you make something that sounds okay, sound really good?
Okay, let's start with a quick video tour. And you're gonna, by the magic of television, you're going to switch to a video that I made earlier in my studio.
Right.
Now that you've seen all of my tools, we can talk about some of them. One of the most obvious tools, as you can see from the video, 3 different analog equalizers. I also have about a dozen digital equalizers. And so I choose between them depending on whether I'm trying to get transparency or warmth or edge or distortion, depending on what kind of music I may be working with.
But let me ask you a question. So when you get in the job, this project to do, right? I assume the very first step is you listen to it and then take notes as to
Oh, no, I never use my ears. I just go by my ears.
You're funny, Bob. But you listen first and take notes, essentially?
Yes, or I use my short-term memory, which is also very good. I have to use, hopefully, the perspective of lots of years working with different recordings and understanding what the recording that I'm working with is trying to communicate.
Right.
And if it needs hands-off, I'm not afraid to do that. If it needs lots of hands-on, I'm not afraid to do that either.
And then when you have your mental, at least, plan of attack, you're going to use EQ, limiting, compression, and other stuff.
Maybe expansion.
Expansion.
Yeah. Maybe noise reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe saturation, like analog tape saturation.
Oh, yeah? Really?
In the video that I sent, yeah. Maybe analog emulation or real tubes or real solid state gear or custom gear that I built. Maybe ambience extraction, which is
so no, what is that? Because I know what you mean, but what does that mean exactly?
Well, I invented a process which uses a psychoacoustic, our own brain's sense of ambience, and I'm able to emphasize what the brain hears in my process. I know it sounds mysterious, but I actually obtained a US patent on it, so there must be a lot, and there's a lot of science behind it. And I literally can take a recording that has very, very small picture, very little depth, and restore the depth that was in that recording if it was there in the first place.
That's pretty cool. So you can give it more of a roomy sound. It's not just you're taking out the dryness, you're wettening it up. How about that?
But not by using artificial reverberation.
It's in the recording, you're just bringing it out.
That's right, bringing out the original ambience in the recording. And I call it ironically, the K stereo processor. And it's available as a plugin.
Oh, so it's not exclusive to you. Other mastering engineers have it.
I released it to the world, yes.
And you also said that you can take, fairly compressed recordings and give them better dynamics?
to a degree, to restore the life that was there. If there is some remnant of the original dynamics in the recording, as long as I don't push it too far, I can put some of the liveliness that was missing, or the punch, or the depth. And again, you have to use discretion and not go too far with anything that you do.
And the other thing is you're working from a 2-track source, right? You don't have a multi-tracks, right?
Increasingly these days, we're able to work with stems. I don't ask for stems automatically, but if I hear a recording and if the recording engineer or the mix engineer didn't quite get a perfect mix, and I know that if I feel that I can help them, I'll discuss it with them. And if they say, "Oh no, I love my mix, it's the greatest in the world," I'll say, "Fine, no problem. I'll work with your mix and get good results." But if they say, "You know, Bob, you're right, I was struggling with getting the bass tone," I'll say, "Well, why don't you send me a bass stem, which is a division, a subdivision of the tracks, and the instrumental and the vocal, and I'll work from those 3 tracks."
Wow. So you can do some degree of mixing.
Right, but not every mastering engineer likes to get into that. And they have to trust the mixing engineer, or the producer has to trust you and understand that, having worked with you before, having worked with me before, they know that I have discretion and that I'm not trying to fix what ain't broke.
But before you start any job, you have a conversation with the client, the musicians, the producer, whoever, about what their expectations are?
Yep, good question. In fact, I encourage them to send me their first successful mix, successful in their point of view. I will listen to it and I'll give them pointers if I feel there's an issue, or I'll be hopefully very diplomatic about it. If I feel that it's just a little thing and they could make it better, the better their recording, the better I look. The less I have to do, the better it can be in many cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about stereo width? You can open it up or squeeze it?
Yeah, but there's danger there. The tools for enhancing stereo width, if overdone or used poorly, can make a recording sound unfocused and or lose the center image or lose the vocalist. In many cases, change the balance. We have to know what a good recording should sound like, and know when, if to leave it well enough alone, and maybe just work in mono in some cases.
Oh, really?
Well, I try to avoid it, but once in a while it's better than trying to enhance the width and space and mess up the mix. Mastering is not just about the process. It's really about having a great room and monitors to begin with, because if you can't trust your monitors, how can you make a decision? You might introduce the coloration of your mastering room or your loudspeakers into the master that you're making.
Well, to me, I think the thing about what you're discussing right now is how this master translates over a wide variety of cars, cheap earbuds, big hi-fis, that it has to sound in some version of good on all of them. You can't just master to sound good on your super duper Dynaudio speakers. It has to sound good on earbuds too.
Well, I got an answer for that too.
I bet you do.
Just call me Elizabeth Warren. Anyway, I have a theory that I call Bob's bell curve. And we all know what the bell curve looks like. And what it says is, if I master to the center of that curve, then I'm going to please the largest group of listeners. Okay? So if somebody's got a really tinny, thin system, there are probably just as many people on the other side of the curve that have overly fat and muddy systems. So if I work right in the middle to the most accurate playback monitoring system that I can, I'm going to make a recording that'll please the most listeners.
But I gotta ask, do you ever sneak it out and play it in your car just to make sure?
There was a time when I did that, but after about 100 confirmations that I'm doing okay, it
Okay.
translates to the
You
car.
don't need to do that anymore. So let's move on to the remaster. What do you think the expectations are for the record company or producer of the band? The record came out in 1998. Now it's 22 years later. It's some anniversary.
The
What do they
typical
want to do?
the typical expectations or the right and honorable thing to do?
Ah, really? Oh, that's nice. So,
Okay. What I'm afraid happens more often than not, typically, is the motivation is to make more money for a reissue.
Yeah, of
To
course.
put out remastered on the label, and it becomes meaningless and usually louder and more distorted.
Oh,
Okay. The honorable thing to do is to know if it really needs a remastering in the first place.
really? So you would turn down a job? You say, hey, the original's fine. I got nothing here. No.
Well, if it's from analog tape and I can restore it all the way back to the beginning, I would look forward to it.
Okay. But you don't think, seriously, you don't think digital remasters of, let's say, 20-year-old, 25-year-old recordings are worth doing? Is that what you're saying?
In my point of view, yes.
Really?
With the right amount of discretion. Well, I'll give you.
Well, wait a minute. What if the original recording and original master job was pretty and you could make it better? You can go back before that and make it better.
Or what if the tools that I had myself 25 years ago are not as good as the tools that I have today?
Exactly, right. So you can make a 25-year-old all digital recording sound better.
Hopefully.
I have faith in you.
Hopefully. I have faith in me too. It really requires discretion, knowing when you don't want to fix what ain't broke.
Sure.
And every engineer has a different perspective. Hopefully.
Let me give you an example. And I have no dog in this race. But you know those early Billy Joel records in the digital age were pretty thin and nasty. And so were Elton John's, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more in the multi-track masters that's not in the final product that they could really make them sound a lot better than they were.
I think the reason is that there was a very strong attitude at the time, which is different from what's happening more and more today, which is you want to engineer this to the lowest common denominator. Make it sound good on a 2995 system. Whereas the philosophy that I'm trying to promote and more today is if you work to the center of the curve, it will translate to that 2995 system. And it will translate to so many others. So those Billy Joel recordings and many of the Columbias of that age were made attempting to work to that lower quality thing. But there's another reason too, which is that the monitors that were used in those commercial studios in New York, many of them in those days and age were Altec 604s, which have a particular narrow band curve. And if you don't know them really, really well, you can be fooled into making a recording that sounds very bright and harsh.
Right. Definitely. Well, a lot of those records at that time were.
Yep.
Bright, mid-rangey, not pleasant sounding.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so let's say you're moving ahead with this remaster project of a digital recording. Again,
originally digital.
Originally digital.
Recorded on very low, the earliest digital formats. Well, like I said, I have an invention that I invented which can help to restore a lot of the information that was on that recording. And so we might employ the K-stereo processor in that kind of restoration.
Okay. But is there, is there a discussion? Who would you be discussing the desires for this remaster with? The band, the producer, record company, whoever? Who's your boss?
Sometimes the people who originated it are dead.
Okay, they're not talking. Okay.
And politics enters in more than good engineering. You wonder if the original producers were contacted and whether, hopefully you could learn the provenance of the remaster by reading about it on the label.
Okay.
I'll tell you the story, but it's a job. It's work to locate the original participants, but it's worth it if you can, because they know where all the bodies are buried. There's the classic Kind of Blue, where one of the tracks was recorded at the wrong speed, right. And Miles is no longer here, but fortunately, some of the experts said it was a fortuitous accident. Right. That speed change is what Miles ended up listening to and enjoyed. So don't try to fix it.
Yeah, I remember. I'm going to insert this. So I remember the thing I was searching for. So what percentage of the jobs that come in are in any, what you would generously call high res? Let's say anything over 4824.
I'll have to tell you, 4824 is nowadays the most common format that I master from.
I know that.
It took a long,
it's high res. It's sort of high res. It's kindergarten high res.
Well, it's a lot better, honestly, than 44.1. It really is. It's the biggest leap forward incrementally, much more than going to 96 or 192.
Oh, really? It's going to 24-bit that makes the difference.
No, going to 48K and 24-bit makes
okay.
Big, big difference. And then when you go to 96K, it's a refinement. And then it's a smaller and smaller refinement. So what percentage comes in at high res?
Well, higher than 48.
Okay, higher than 48. Everybody's different. In my studio, I'd say 20%.
20%? Okay, that's about what I thought. Yeah. And just because they're higher, or 48 or higher, does that automatically lead to that they sound better than a 44.116 or 41.24?
Well, I don't have the comparison. In many cases,
being high res doesn't make it sound better. What makes it sound good is the decisions made in the recording and mixing process, I think.
Plus the high res. Let's just say that
it's a cherry on top.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. All right, I think we're good. Are you ready? Here goes. My name's Steve Guttenberg. This is the Audiophiliac Daily Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Bob, for being today's very, very, very special guest from 2,000 miles away. And if you dig these videos, please subscribe. Hit that button. I get confused which side it is on this thing. To subscribe. When you do, hit the little notification bell. You can follow me on Twitter at AudiophiliacMan, on Instagram at steve.guttenberg. Check out the playlist for music reviews and headphone reviews and interviews like this one with Bob today. And now I really am done. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I do hope to see you and Bob Katz back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.